The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I had crossed a line that jokes were never meant to cross. It was one of those careless, stupid things you say when you're young, sitting on a couch with your best friend, trying to be funny. But sometimes, a joke doesn't just echo in a room, it changes the direction of your life forever. Before we dive into this story, take a moment to like the video, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways life can change us. My name is Ryan Carter, and 10 years ago in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, I learned that one reckless sentence could unravel everything I thought I understood about love, loyalty, and growing up. Back then, I was 22, still figuring out my life. I worked part-time at an auto repair shop while taking evening classes at a community college. My best friend Marcus Bennett had been in my life since middle school. We played basketball together, survived boring classes together, and spent countless weekends wasting time at each other's houses. Marcus lived with his mom, Vanessa Bennett, in a modest brick home on the edge of town. His father had left when he was young, so it had always been just the two of them. I'd been there so often that the place felt like a second home to me. Vanessa was the kind of woman people noticed when she walked into a room, not because she tried to stand out, but because she carried herself with quiet confidence. She worked as a nurse at a local hospital, raised Marcus on her own, and somehow managed to keep a calm, warm presence about her. To me, she had always been just Marcus's mom. At least, that's what I told myself. One warm Friday evening in early fall, Marcus and I were sitting in his living room watching a game on TV. We had pizza boxes scattered across the coffee table and empty soda cans stacked beside them. It was one of those relaxed nights where nothing important seemed to be happening. Vanessa had just gotten home from work and walked through the room on her way to the kitchen. She was still wearing her scrubs, her dark hair tied loosely behind her head, looking tired but graceful in a way that made the room feel calmer just by her presence. Marcus made some sarcastic comment about how she was still dressed for work, and without thinking, without even pausing to filter my thoughts, I laughed and said something that changed everything. I joked that his mom was hotter than most of the girls I had dated. The room went silent. Marcus stared at me like I had just insulted his entire family. My stomach dropped immediately, realizing what I had said. I started laughing awkwardly, trying to brush it off as a dumb joke. Then Vanessa stopped in the doorway. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It wasn't anger, it wasn't embarrassment, it was curiosity. And then she said something I never expected to hear. She asked if I wanted to go out with her. At first I thought she was joking. Marcus laughed nervously, assuming the same thing. But Vanessa didn't laugh. She simply looked at me and said she was serious. The moment stretched into an uncomfortable silence that felt like it lasted forever. I could feel Marcus staring at me, waiting for me to say something that would restore normal reality. But nothing about that moment felt normal anymore. I stammered something about how I had only been joking, how I didn't mean anything by it. Vanessa smiled faintly, shrugged, and said that sometimes jokes reveal more truth than people realize. Then she walked down the hallway toward her room, leaving Marcus and me sitting in stunned silence. For the rest of the night, Marcus barely spoke to me, and honestly, I didn't blame him. But something strange happened after that night. I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. At first it was confusion, then curiosity, and eventually something deeper that I didn't want to admit. Vanessa wasn't just Marcus's mom. She was a woman who had lived an entire life full of struggles I didn't understand yet. A woman who had raised a son alone, worked long hospital shifts, and somehow remained kind and composed. Over the next few weeks I found myself visiting Marcus's house less often, partly out of guilt and partly because I didn't know how to act around either of them anymore. But one evening, while picking up a tool I had accidentally left behind, I ran into Vanessa outside the house as she was watering the small garden near the porch. We ended up talking. At first it was casual, about work, about school, about life in general. But the conversation slowly drifted into deeper places. She told me how lonely life could feel after years of focusing entirely on raising a child. She talked about dreams she had pushed aside and how strange it felt watching Marcus grow into an adult. I listened in a way I had never really listened before. For the first time, I wasn't seeing her as my friend's mother. I was seeing her as a person. Over the next month, those brief conversations happened again and again. Sometimes it was 5 minutes, sometimes 20. We never mentioned the joke again, but the tension lingered quietly beneath every conversation. Until one evening when she finally said something that made my heart race. She told me that life didn't follow simple rules about age or expectations. Sometimes people meet each other at unexpected moments. She said that if I ever truly meant what I joked about that night, I should be honest with myself. Then she walked back into the house. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about Marcus, about loyalty, about the invisible boundaries friendships create. But I also kept thinking about Vanessa's eyes when she spoke, calm, thoughtful, and strangely hopeful. A week later, I asked Marcus if we could talk. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. I told him that nothing inappropriate had happened, that I respected him and valued our friendship more than anything. But I also admitted something that shocked even me. I told him I might have feelings for his mom. Marcus reacted exactly the way you would expect. He was furious. For a long time, he refused to speak to me. Weeks turned into months where the friendship we had built over years seemed to vanish completely. It was the lowest point of my life. I questioned everything. My choices, my intentions, and whether some lines in life should simply never be crossed. During that time, Vanessa and I barely spoke either. She didn't want to damage Marcus's relationship with me any further, but something unexpected slowly began to happen. Marcus started noticing how lonely his mom really was. He saw the quiet evenings she spent alone after work, the way she tried to hide her exhaustion, and how much of her life had been dedicated entirely to him. One evening, nearly 6 months later, Marcus called me. His voice sounded calmer than I expected. He told me something that still stays with me today. He said that if I ever hurt his mother, he would never forgive me. But if I truly cared about her, then maybe life was more complicated than he wanted it to be. A year later, Vanessa and I went on our first official date. It wasn't dramatic or glamorous. We simply had dinner at a quiet restaurant in Cleveland, talking for hours about everything from childhood memories to the strange twists life throws at people. It felt real, and sometimes real love doesn't look the way people expect. Now, before we reach the end of this story, I have a small request for you watching this video. If you've ever experienced a moment where life surprised you, where a simple moment changed everything, write the word unexpected in the comments. Because sometimes the most powerful stories begin with the things we never planned. Today, 10 years later, Marcus and I are still close friends. Our journey wasn't easy. There were arguments, awkward holidays, and many moments where we questioned whether we had made the right choices. But time has a way of softening the hardest edges. Marcus eventually realized something important. Love doesn't follow neat rules. It grows in strange places, during unexpected conversations, and sometimes even after the most embarrassing jokes imaginable. Vanessa and I are married now, and every once in a while when the three of us sit together laughing about old memories, Marcus reminds me of the night everything began. The night I said the dumbest joke of my life. The night that changed everything. And if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, comment, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the most unexpected moments lead to the most meaningful lives.